Well, thank you all for joining us again or for the first time. This is our weekly series, Mornings with Miller. Most of you know we talk about a different subject every single week. Sometimes it's a story, sometimes it's a product, sometimes it's, we're trying to mix it up and keep it interesting for you all. So today, what we're going to talk about is basically how our posture fit, which is our sacral support, came to be. So for this story, we're going to go back to 1996, which I guess in the grand scheme of things really wasn't all that long ago. But the story is about a second generation Indy race car driver named Buddy Lazier. So in 96, he had a really good feeling going into that Indy car season. He started off really, really well at his first qualifying race. He felt that he finally had a car that would really help him to win the Indy 500. His father was a race car driver, and so Buddy is the son, Bob is the father, and in 1981, Buddy watched his father race at the Indy Motor Speedway. And then, during that race, a blown engine on lap 154 ended his race prematurely. So he finished in 19th place. And basically, Buddy, the son, learned at that time, you really have to kind of assume it's your last chance. You kind of want to go all out because you never know if you're going to make it back. So moving forward to his second qualifying race for the Indy 500, he had a very promising start again after a 1 mile lap that he completed at record speed within a fraction of a second. Basically, everything changed. Something blew off the back of the car. There was a malfunction, and he basically flew backwards into the reinforced concrete wall that was behind turn 2. And in that crash, he fractured his back, pelvis, and sacrum in 43 places. He spent 2.5 weeks in an ICU in Indianapolis. And then when he returned home to Colorado, he couldn't walk. And at that point, the 96 Indy 500 was less than 6 weeks away. So at that time, the Indy car industry was really starting to notice Dr. Brock Walker, which I have to say, I'm really sad that I've never had the opportunity to meet Dr. Brock in person because I've heard he's quite a character. But we've been working with him, since, as you'll hear as the story moves along, since about 2000, I think it was, or it might have been actually a little bit earlier than that. He was a former competitive skier. He held a doctorate in chiropractic. He had his own practice. But then in 1990, he sold his Michigan-based practice to really refine and test his theories about human performance in high G-force applications. And you can see, I'm not going to read my screen there, but you can see, basically his quote, he was really interested in the human body and how you can support it in the right way to be comfortable and really perform at your absolute best. He developed several seats for drivers, gathering feedback, and then making improvements on those seats, based on what he was hearing from the drivers. So just a quick little lesson for those of you who do not know. This is just showing basically where the sacrum is and how important it really is in supporting us. So you can see there highlighted in red the area just above your tailbone. And there are many levers and pulleys that are sort of anchored. Major muscle groups attaching from the pelvis to the upper body, and then 11 major muscle groups attaching from the pelvis to the lower body. So that kind of links everything together. So, it's really important no matter what you're doing. If we are sitting in our chairs every day, if you're, an Indy race car driver, but basically supporting that area so we can be, comfortable and strong. So if we're positioned in the right manner and supported in those right places, again, you'll be able to be more comfortable and more able to sustain that position for a longer period of time. And that's really exactly what Buddy needed. So the Laziers reached out to Dr. Brock. He really didn't want to get involved. He kind of thought they were crazy for even wanting to attempt this. But he realized that this was something that Buddy was going to try to attempt with or without his help. So he decided to go out and visit them and see what he could do to help. Buddy couldn't sit, stand, or lay down, and he couldn't take pain meds because obviously he was going to be driving. So you can't really take medications and drive a race car at that, high speed. So as you can see here, he was building different prototypes. He built a stronger case for that theory that the sacrum is the primary place where we need support. If you look at those graphics here, obviously when we're standing, as long as we're not slouching, you have that strongest position. You have that natural S curve of the spine. When you sit in that next graphic, we just all have that tendency naturally to kind of slouch, and you start to form that C curve, and that compresses the discs. It's just really bad for the fluids. It kind of like blocks everything up. So we want to try to really try to enhance, I guess, the ability to keep that natural S curve. The graphic that's second from the right, you'll see there a lumbar support, which is fine, but if it's in the wrong position, it really can cause more damage than it can help. And then on the right there, you're seeing highlighted, if you have that sacral support, it's really the closest you can get to mimicking or replicating that natural S curve of when you're standing. So basically, it should have taken 2 years to try to develop this seat for him, but in 3 short weeks, they were able to develop this seat. What he really needed to do was to distribute the load of Buddy's body so that the pelvis and the sacrum didn't carry all the weight, almost him and really enhance his feeling for the car. His goal was to get him through 25 laps of the race. That was Dr. Brock's goal, was to get him through 25 laps of that race. And meanwhile, Buddy completed all 200 laps faster than any other driver that year. And I'm going to just quickly, I pulled up a quote that Buddy said. He said, "He knew I needed something that was ahead of its time, and he just designed it right there in the gasoline alley. It cradled me in the race car, but still enabled me to move the way that I needed to move. Would I do 500 without his seat? I'll never know, but I sure as hell wouldn't have wanted to try." So that being said, you can see the photo there of him after his victory, but things didn't really end there. So I'm not all that familiar with the racing circuit, but I will say, obviously, it's a big deal to win. So after that, he had tons of interviews and appearances that he needed to attend. He was worried about being able to, do these interviews and be comfortable because he was still in a lot of pain, despite the fact that he was able to get through that race. So he really wondered if those same concepts could apply to an office chair for all of his interviews. So again, they called up Dr. Brock Walker. They asked to, him to consult with them on developing, something that he could sit in for all these interviews. So Dr. Brock went back out and visited them and basically found an old chair in the father's warehouse and retrofitted it with a device that would basically be the precursor to what is now our posture fit or sacral support. So basically what happened after that is Herman Miller executives had kind of heard the story about what happened, and they reached out to Dr. Brock. So I don't know everyone that was involved in the meeting, but I do know it was our CEO at the time, Brian Walker, no relation to Dr. Brock Walker, just want to say, and also Don Goman, who is Executive VP for Research, Design, and Development. So they reached out to him. They asked him to come to meetings. So this was November of 2000. They reviewed his theories and the actual seat. He brought the actual race car seat for them to sit in and sort of test out. The other thing that they discussed is, obviously you all know that we hear about lumbar support all the time, and Dr. Brock really feels that lumbar support can make you comfortable in the moment. You know, you feel supported in that area, you feel good for at the time, but it didn't necessarily increase someone's long-term comfort. So again, this is 2000. The Aeron chair was introduced in 1994. So at the time, the Aeron chair really epitomized our insight and understanding of ergonomics, and it was our most popular product ever in our history. So altering it was a really big risk, but you know, adding that sacral support to that chair really shows our commitment to state-of-the-art comfort and support. It's really the best place to demonstrate our commitment. So, and I just want to read another quote. So I don't know if you all are familiar with Bill Stumpf. Again, someone I never had the opportunity to meet. Unfortunately, he has passed away, but I totally have a crush on him. I just feel like everything he's done for ergonomics and his sort of philosophies, I think are really interesting. But what he said was, Stumpf would, I'm sorry, am I reading the right thing? Yeah, Stumpf would say that if you subscribe to the belief that the problem is really important and you solve for it in one product, but fail to go back and acknowledge that solution across the board in other projects, you ultimately take away from the validity of the problem. So, you know, again, just kind of realizing that even though you might have something good, there's always a way, or there's sometimes a way basically that you can improve that. And Bill Stumpf thought that, you know, if we were really going to drive a stake in the ground, that the Aeron chair was really the best place to do it. So what you'll see on the left there is that's the classic Aeron. So of course, you know, a few years ago in 2016, we remastered it, but you'll see there, that's the original Aeron with that, that is the original posture fit support. So it's changed aesthetically, reducing the materials, but that's what it looked like. And then the upper right, you'll see, I just wanted to show this graphic that basically shows, you know, it's in all of our performance seating at this point. It's integrated into the chair. The only chair that technically it's still an option is the Aeron chair. But, and then you'll see there, those highlighted areas is where you'll find it on each of our performance chairs. And then the last thing I just want to talk about, because of course, I just feel like I can't finish this story without talking about our performance DNA. So that leads into, you know, again, posture fit. So we formally introduced it in 2002. So it's been around, obviously, in our seating for a very long time. It's not really, you know, a question. It's something that we found definitely helps support people and keep them comfortable. That's only one part of our three-part DNA. So that first one is that total spinal support. So obviously we have that sacral support, very important. And the one thing I forgot to mention actually is many of you have probably seen me do this, but just to kind of illustrate what that posture fit does is it helps keep your hips sort of almost like angled in a way that makes it difficult to slouch. So I've often done the illustration where I stand, or even when I'm sitting, I put my fingertips on my hips. And if any of you want to try this, feel free. But basically, if you put your fingertips on your hips and you slouch, you'll feel your hips rotate. If you can try to keep your hips from rotating through that posture fit support, it's going to make it more difficult to slouch. That's essentially the idea behind that sacral support and that posture fit. And again, that's why we're always stressing it's important to sit all the way back in your chair. So that being said, you get total spinal support, you get the sacral, you get the lumbar, you get the thoracic, and then sometimes depending on, you know, your height and the chair you're sitting in, like for me, if I sit in a high back cosm, I'm also getting that cervical support in my neck. Not that I should be leaning that far back in the chair anyway. And then the second piece is that natural balance movement throughout our tilt mechanisms, through kinematic technologies. You know, every tilt mechanism is a little bit different based on the chair, but they all have that same idea that they move very naturally the way that our bodies pivot at our hips, knees, and ankles. It's just supposed to feel very natural. It's not supposed to feel like you're going to tip over. It's not supposed to feel like an ab workout. The chair really should just move with you throughout the day. And then the last piece is that dynamic fit. So right now I'm sitting in an Aeron chair. The dynamic fit, those materials are the pellicle material. It's different from chair to chair. In the Embody, you have the, oh my God, Sam, I'm blanking on the, I'm having a total brain, oh my God. Anyway, it'll come back to me. I'm totally blanking on the word for the suspension materials in the Embody chair.
Oh, rhythm? Like the name of the fabric?
No. The material underneath the fabric. Anyway, I'm having a total moment.
It's like a pixelated.
Pixel, thank you. Pixelated support. And then, again, I'm not going to go through all the chairs, but it varies chair to chair. But the idea is that those materials support you where you need to be supported. They flex where they need to flex. So the chair moves with you and you're not sort of fighting against the chair. And you'll find these 3 pieces of DNA throughout all of our performance chairs, from Embody, to Veris and Lino. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the little story. I just always think and I've given abbreviated versions of that story, so some of you may have heard it, but I just think it's a really cool, I think it, really reinforces that, we're all about problem-solving design and human-centered design, and we're always looking to basically improve upon what we've done and help people, help support people throughout the day, throughout their work day.
So I just wanted to put a comment out. I asked in the chat how many people were adjusting how they're currently sitting because you're talking about it. Quite a few people. I will say every time I talk about this in the meeting and I'm in person, people are like, they all shift themselves.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say, actually, I'm going to go back 1 second here. The one thing that is also a little bit different, if you see on that graphic on the top right, the one on the left, the Aeron. So that's actually what I'm sitting in right now. That's our Posture Fit SL. So that was something new that we introduced with the remastered Aeron chair. So you'll see there's 2 little paddles there. The lower one is the sacral support, and then the top one is the lumbar. So I can adjust this. Like right now I'm loosening it, so it's moving further from my spine, but I usually keep it cranked all the way in because I do have lower back issues. And I really like to feel that extra support, and really, because I'm a sloucher. As much as I preach not to slouch, I can't help it. Sometimes I do. So, but I think most of you are probably familiar with that, but I just can't talk about it enough.
Anybody have any questions or comments, or any race car fans?
I will say, like, not completely related, I recently watched Ford versus Ferrari. That movie was so good and definitely gave me a better appreciation of the race car industry. It was pretty cool.
You guys, I have to tell you, we're a big race family, so I've been taking screenshots and texting them to my son.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
We're going to follow up. I want to send the actual article out, and then there's a 1-pager on Posture Fit that I think is pretty cool too. Well, if no one has any questions or comments, next week's topic, Sam is going to talk about hay and some of the new products in the fall 2020 update.